Hello and welcome to yet another edition of the Accelerate podcast. And I'm super excited to introduce my guest to you. Her name is NanaAma Botchway. She's the founder of Enroll and Company. She's ranked as a leading lawyer in Legal 500, Chambers and Partners, and the International Financial Law Review. She has advised on numerous significant investments and divestments in Ghana and in other parts of Africa. NanaAma is a graduate of Princeton University's Woodrow Wilson School undergraduate program, the New York University's Stern School of Business, and Columbia University School of Law. She's also been a member of several boards she's also been a director in several boards in Africa. NanaAma, very warm welcome to you, and I'm really excited to have you on.
Thank you so much for having me, Neka. Thank you.
Right, I was listening to actually an earlier podcast in which you were the guest, and I also during one of our sessions that you never intended to be a lawyer. It was not what you set out to be. Can you shed light on that?
Yes. So I think when I was little, I had all kinds of, and I still do have all kinds of interests. I think when I was very young, I wanted to be an architect. For a long time, I was always very interested in design. I still am design and all things beautiful. And and then at a certain point, I wanted to be a psychologist. I was always very interested in perspective and how other people saw the world and how other people actually literally could see. I always wanted to see the world through somebody else's eyes, and was always very interested in how people related to other people. And so, yeah, I didn't start out in life wanting to be a lawyer, and definitely not a corporate lawyer.
Right. So, what made that switch and then to even attend one of the best law schools says quite a lot about you. And obviously, you took it very seriously when you decided to do that. What prompted that switch?
I think I used to work. I started working very early in life, very young. And one summer, I got a job working for Price Waterhouse as a summer intern. And I was very young. I think I was maybe my first year of undergraduate school. So I was basically the kind of intern who would do anything. I mean, if they told me to go get coffee, that's what I would do. I did whatever I was asked to do. And one of the projects that I was asked to work on was assisting one of the partners who was working on a German US tax treaty. And so his work was kind of, he did some tax law and tax accounting. And that was really my first introduction to the kind of work that I do now. And I found it incredibly interesting. I had originally attended Princeton and to be a math major. So I
A
was
math
always very
major.
interested. Yes, I
I
was
know
always
that.
very interested
Okay.
in, yeah, it's a well-kept secret. I was always very interested in logic,
Right.
and always very, mathematical in my thinking.
Mm.
And I really could see how I could marry logic and some of my other interests through law.
Right.
And so it just, when I finished my undergraduate and I looked at the various options, it just seemed like the one that spoke to me the most.
Mm.
So I have to say, straight out of undergrad, I did go and do my MBA and a master's in accounting.
Oh, wow. Okay. So you're an accountant and then you're also a lawyer. So I guess you also now understand complex deals, and that's why you specialize in things like that that really use a lot of the brain and not just pure legal work. I'm not a legal person, but if you understand the way a lot of thinking,
Yeah.
and you're creating or yeah, putting together a good transaction, right? I mean, one of them
Mm.
was a very large, I believe, an investment in a huge investment, an international investment in Ghana that you worked on, right? So what
Mm.
gives you, I guess, what triggers that interest? Those complex deals, that's the word, complex transactions.
Well, I think my interest in it is the same as my interest in maths.
Mm,
It's problem solving.
right,
And I think this is a very interesting kind of problem solving because it is really multifaceted and it's not
right,
just, so mathematical problems can be complex, but the kind of complexity that comes from the sort of things that we do
mm,
has to do with things that are not necessarily always predictable, don't work rationally, basically the human element. So I love what I do because it brings in my love of problem solving, and it allows me a great deal of variety. And it's part, I think, a really good advisor
right,
is part sort of, pseudo psychologist
right.
is, but I mean, not psychologist, but you have to understand the psychology of, how people think and how they analyze risk and, how they interact. Negotiations is a lot about how people think and mindset.
It's really
Uh,
interesting how you've been able to marry your interests into a profession. Very interesting, and actually now specializing in a particular area of law and crafting something that really works for you.
mm,
Based on really your interest, your passions, your experience. Very interesting point, actually, right there.
mm.
Okay,
I think I
go
think
ahead.
everybody has to. I think you have to in order to be successful and to continue in a particular field for a long time. You've
Mm,
got to. It's for me. It's got to continue to be interesting. And what I love about what I do is the variety.
mm,
So you get to see a lot of different types of work, but analyzing and looking at it through a particular lens. And so, one day maybe you're helping a pharmaceutical company, another day you're helping an agribusiness, another day you're helping a power producer, another day you're helping an oil super major. So, and they're all, and so you're learning a little bit about all these different businesses and industries, and I find it incredibly
yeah, no, you've really
rewarding.
raised a very important point that actually I'm going to take some time to think about.
Mm,
Perhaps one of the success criteria of a high performing female founder and really staying in for the long haul, right? And crafting a space,
mhm.
intentionally doing that. Okay, let's move on. I know we don't have so much time with you on this one
Okay.
already. Um, so now you had, with a very top education from top school in the United States, you left all that to move to your home country of Ghana. What prompted the move? And this is kind of like going to start all over again. Why did you take that bold step?
Yeah. So at the time, I was married to a very wonderful man who always, when we met, he said he was always moving back home and he wanted to come, but was Ghanaian, is Ghanaian as well, and he always wanted to move back. And I think that's one of the things that I loved about him when we met, because I had left when I was really young and moved to England when I was 7, and then moved to the US when I was 18. Um, and I was always very proudly Ghanaian, but I always knew that it was important for my children to have the experience of living and growing up in Ghana. And one of the things that I think really served me when I moved to England and to the US was having had that experience of living in Ghana and being the majority and not having basic things about your ability questioned purely on the basis of your race. So that was very, very helpful to me when I went particularly to the US, because, and I think also to some extent to England, it didn't occur to me that somebody would think, oh, you can't do science or you can't do this because you are this type of person. And, you know, not having those, not having that mindset helped me tremendously. And I wanted my children to not only have that experience, but to learn their culture and to understand where they come from. And so when we moved, our children were very young. My eldest was 6, I think, and then, no, he was about 5. So they were 5, 3, and 18 months or something. And yeah, and I'm very, very happy. It's been an interesting journey, but I'm very happy that they've had that experience. And they too, the boys have moved to the US. They too are very happy that they've had their childhood in Ghana.
Right. We share similar experiences as well, because actually my children moved them back and actually had gone through a divorce, but still moved along, went forward with the plan to get the children to have that African Nigerian foundation. So they were 7 and 5 when they moved back.
Oh, wow.
Mom is 19 now, they've all moved back. And he's so thankful that, Mom, thank you for, well, 2 of them, for giving them the experience of moving back despite even in such unfortunate circumstance, or the circumstance I was going through at that time. But despite that, still moved back. And I'm sure you, I mean, any regrets for doing that?
I mean, it was difficult. It was difficult. And, you know, you had to really think about, you know, can they get the very best world-class education? And I think, you know, could they have gotten, if we're just looking at academics and access to resources and things, could they have had a better educational experience in the US? Probably.
Yes.
But when I look at it on balance, I mean, would they have had access to things like, you know, different extracurriculars and, you know, what would that have meant in terms of, you know, preparation for college and stuff? I think they might have been on a different trajectory. But when I look at it on balance, I think that was the right decision to have taken. And I look at them as whole people, and I'm immensely proud of the people that they have become. They're wonderful people, and well-rounded, and they have a global perspective, which I think in today's world is going to be really important.
Right.
And I don't think that they would have had that if we had chosen to my ex-husband was a doctor and I was a lawyer, so people used to joke that we were like the Cosbys. I don't think that they would have had that perspective if we had chosen to continue to live Cosby Show type life in New York.
And that's actually building the next generation, right? And setting them up for success to be able to compete in an increasingly global world. Anyway, I don't know how we'll move to motherhood, but that's also part of being a high performing, you know, female founder, because you also wear the mommy hat, right? And these are things to consider. So yes, you have that. Then you started working on building a practice in Ghana. So what's been your experience? I believe you've been you founded this over 15 years ago. What's your experience? What's been the highest high and the lowest low?
Naka, I mean, I knew when I said yes, I knew you were going to challenge me. So the firm, I actually started another business and then was asked to go in-house with a client. So the current firm that I run is 10 years old this year, not 15.
Right.
What's been the highest high? My goodness, that's
putting you on the spot. Sorry.
It's a difficult one. It's such an interesting question. I think I mean, there's so many. It's difficult to pick one as the highest.
Okay. Or
Um,
what's been a good high? Let's say a good one.
yeah, I'm
That
just trying to.
immediately comes to mind.
I think I'm gonna tell you what makes me really happy.
Wow.
The thing that makes me really happy is when I see some of my employees, I'm very proud of all of my staff, but when I see some of my staff and in the time that I have known them, and in some small way, because of the opportunity that my firm has created for them, when I see how they have used that opportunity to transform their lives, I mean, it's the best feeling
Right.
ever. And some of them have, from the time that we met to where they are today, they've done tremendous things, and it's not just coming to work every day, but they've come to work, they've been going to school at night, and they've gone from having one degree to having master's degrees. I mean, yeah. So for me, seeing the personal growth and development of some of the people that I've had the privilege to work with is incredible.
Oh, wow.
And seeing how, some of the people who are now alums, where they have gotten to. And when they come back and they tell me, some of the stuff that I learned in your small law firm served me so well and has helped me to get to this point. I mean, that is incredibly rewarding for me.
Right.
The lowest lows, I think those have to do with some of the challenges of doing business in the part of the world that you and I work in.
Right.
And, they relate to things like just incredibly difficult economic circumstances and very difficult things like not having access to credit. And after 10 years in business, and the business has been growing year on year, it's still difficult to get access to an overdraft line or just basic things that one needs to really scale a business. So some of those things, I think some days are incredibly confounding and frustrating. So some of those things, and I think that governments and things can do a lot to make it easier for small businesses to grow. And I'm happy to say that I see the government in Ghana taking certain steps to help small businesses. So I think some of the lowest lows have to do with some of the basic struggles that I see as needless and that could be easily erased, that are still very real challenges for most businesses.
Right. And that's really why one has to really applaud female founders who are really making their mark in their respective fields of endeavor. I mean, you've been in America, you know how it works. I came back to the States and I set up I acquired a business, and I got funding within a month to get that. And so when you say things like that, so when an African woman is successful and is doing well, particularly one who has international experience and has tasted what it is to operate in the other part of the world, I really have to drop my hat and applaud you,
Thank
for
you.
doing that. And then even when you said your highest high, it wasn't really about, oh, you won this big deal. I mean, there are massive deals you've executed, really massive, in the hundreds of millions. To give that figure, you didn't say that. It was just the pride and the fulfillment of seeing others that you've given the opportunity to be and do, who would not have ever had that opportunity, is what gives you that fulfillment. So I applaud you, and well done.
Thank you.
Well
Thank
done.
you, my sister. Thank you.
All right. Okay. So another question, kind of shifting gears. I know you have been on a member of or on the boards of really highly reputable companies. How did you prepare for that role? And can you just give one or two insights for those who are thinking of or who desire to join some of these boards? I have mentored a few of them as well, and they usually like to know maybe one thing you did on how do you position yourself to be considered, even to be called.
Deja that.
Let's get some
What
insights.
are the easy questions coming? What are the easy questions coming? I'm just trying to think back to my first appointment. I think that you need to network, because my first appointment came to me because somebody I knew and who, thought highly of my professional reputation and what I bring to the table. They recommended me. So somebody else who was in the room where a decision was being made put my name forward. And when my name was put forward, I had what they were looking for, but I needed somebody in the room to put my name forward. And so I think networking is something that everybody has to do from when you leave secondary school, even during secondary school. People need to understand what networking is. It is not, in my opinion, it's not going to mixers and cocktails and handing out cards. That's not networking. Networking is building relationships with like-minded people, and even not like-minded people, building relationships with a wide variety of people and maintaining those relationships, taking care of those relationships, keeping in touch with people, because you never know where people are going to end up. And deep relationships. So your relationships from school, I encourage my children to keep in touch with their friends and their acquaintances from school and university. Keep those connections going. And in professional circles, the junior staff, I encourage them to make friends and to remain close to the people that they went to school with, who may end up in different places in government, in different countries. So networking consistently is very important. That, and then building your personal brand. Now, building your personal brand is a lot more than, making sure that you have a lot of connections on LinkedIn or a lot of followers on Instagram. For me, what I mean when I say building your personal brand is being consistent in the things that you claim are important. So, and working to make sure that you are constantly refining your skills and honing your craft, so that, your work speaks for itself. Your work speaks for itself. The things, your values and stuff are reflected in your behavior. So you are the same person, wherever people find you. It's not that, when you're in one room, you're this kind of person. And when you're just being consistent, I'm not going to use the word authentic because it's bandied about quite a lot, but being consistent. So if you say you're about excellence, let that be seen in all that you are doing. So networking.
Because people are watching, right? And checking you out.
Yes. And it's the people that you are not thinking are watching who are watching. Your classmates.
Yes.
Your classmates, your primary school friends, these people have seen you for a very long time, and they can actually vouch for you.
And again here, actually.
Yeah.
And being aware of that. Okay, let's get to something lighter now. So when you are not working on a complex deal, right? How do you unwind? I mean, look at the lovely space behind you. I'm like thinking about mine, like, oops, okay. I mean, so beautiful. What else? What do you do?
Thank you. What do? I play tennis. I love tennis. I play tennis every Saturday. I love to read. I read quite a lot. I listen to audiobooks quite a lot because I read a lot for work and I'm concerned about eye strain. So I listen to a lot of books. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I'm always trying to develop in some way. I love listening to things about neurobiology and brain and how the brain works.
That's
And
unwinding now.
for me it
And
is.
I'm a
Love that stuff.
neurobiology. I mean,
I love that stuff. It sounds complex. There's this great podcast called Hidden Brain,
okay, I have
and
to
they
check
talk
that out.
about all sorts of things about how the brain works, how the mind works. I love beautiful things. So whenever I get a chance, I'm, moving things around in my house, redecorating, and I have a huge veranda in my house, and it's full of plants. And I have a little garden that I like to design and putter around in, and playing with my dog, and hanging out with my daughter, who is an incredible amount of fun, and talking to my boys who are not here. So those are my favorite things.
So you have a full, rich life, rich non-working life. I don't know about the podcast on the brain, but obviously that's what you're passionate about. I guess
You need to listen to that.
and I am actually. I am. I'm going to tell you, whoa, that's very, very insightful.
And
Yeah.
it's very fun. No, so I want to touch on this point you make about the full life, because I think that's one thing that we have to, as women, we have to be really mindful and intentional about. There's never going to be a time when you're going to finish everything, all the things you have to do to get to the things that you want to do. So one of the things I think I have succeeded at is moving forward in all different aspects of life. So I've, done all these things from a professional standpoint, but I've also had 4 children at the same time. And I have a wonderful, circle of wonderful friends from around the world that I am in touch with. And, so it's important to have fun, to exercise, to not take yourself, too seriously.
Okay, last 2 questions, final questions. What do you consider the role of coaching is? I mean, to be coached and to coach others. What do you think about that? What do you think about that? I just thought about that. It wasn't something.
Yeah, I think coaching is incredibly important. I have had coaching. It's important to find the right person for you. But when the chemistry is right, the coaching is incredibly important, and it's incredibly helpful. I have found it tremendously useful at significant points in my journey when I was thinking, through a bunch of difficult decisions, and I just wanted to discuss it with somebody who was removed from the situation. You're not your best friend, and those are important people to discuss things with because they know you very well. But it's sometimes very, very useful to have somebody who is completely removed and dispassionate and can help you to, think about how you're thinking. So that's my own personal coaching experience. But I like to think that I serve as a sort of coach for some of the people who work with me. Everybody needs somebody who is going to encourage them, and sometimes that person can see things in them that they can't see in themselves, positive things. So I have been very lucky in that I've had along my way, I've had people invest in me. I've had people, go out on a limb for me. And I think it's very important for me to do the same for others. So I do that quite intentionally myself for some of the junior people that are working with me. And actually I'm at the point now where people just reach out to me and ask me if I can mentor them, and can we have, a quarterly chat, and they will share with me what their plans are and ask me to give them my thoughts. So I find that very, very, very fulfilling, and I love doing that kind of stuff.
It tells. Okay, so the last question, and not the least, your final thoughts, speaking to your younger self. I
Hmm.
know there are several, while this program is really for high performing female founders and CEOs, I also know
Hmm.
there are those in their mid career or just some, maybe a legal professional just starting out with building her practice. Um, what, what things or what points, insights would you like to share as we end this conversation? I could go on, but I'm mindful of time as well.
Hmm. I would say that it's very important for everybody to take the time to figure out what is important to them, to be clear on what their values are, what their goals are, and and to make a plan, to be very intentional about planning for the kind of life that they want to live, and to be, to make sure that whatever they're doing is in line with what it is that they say they want to achieve down the road. I think it's also very important to try a variety of things. So if along your path, there are things that you really want to try them, try them. My biggest fear is not getting to a point where, the things aren't possible anymore. And I haven't tried some things that I really want to try. So I think people should start to take risks, learn to take risks early. And I'm not talking about gambling. I'm talking about, planning, well thought out um, things, and take risk. I think women, we're very, very conservative and needlessly overly risk averse. So I think women should learn to take risks from an early age. And I think believe in yourself. Believe in yourself. You may have a dream about what it is that you want to do, and other people will not necessarily see what it is that you see. They won't share your vision. Even very well-meaning people, your parents, the people who are closest to you, will dissuade you from certain things because they're worried for you. You should believe in yourself, and not just believe in yourself, then actually take whatever preparatory steps you need to take to make sure that you can achieve what it is that you want to achieve. I know that when I, announced that I was pregnant in law school, my parents, my loved ones were horrified because they thought, oh, she's come all this way only now to just, she's now just going to be barefoot and pregnant, and, it's all going to be a loss. And then, of course, I had children every 2 years after that. So they continued to be horrified and were
How you
sure that
just manage to do everything? I mean,
I
I'm
would not
surprised.
amount to anything.
Wow.
But I knew what I wanted.
Mm.
And I didn't let any naysayers stop me.
Right. And they're still not, and you just keep moving on, moving along in alignment with what you desire. This has
Yeah,
been a very, very insightful chat, and I hope it was for you too. Kind of
yeah.
veered off, but as we have a conversation, it's meant to be light and really hear your thoughts. Thank you for sharing from your wealth of wisdom and experience, and thank you also for listening to my listeners. Thanks again for joining this episode. I'd love for you to post your comments below, and also share with your friends. Has been extremely insightful. Let us also know what one thing you took away from this episode. Thanks again. And until next time, endeavor to learn, grow, and profit.